Well, folks, it's a thrill to go back to the future. Bob Starkey has returned to LSU. He coached here for over 2 decades on both the men's side and the women's side, and great to see you.
I got to be honest with you, it's great to see you. Great to be back in Baton Rouge.
I appreciate it, man. There was some frustrations with women's basketball in previous years, but I guess good things come to those who wait, because we've had so many unexpected blessings, I guess you could say, with Kim becoming the head coach here, the huge shocker, and then you coming to team up with her after all those years when you two battled back in the early 2000s.
Sure. Well, it's a wonderful opportunity for me. I mean, obviously the lure of coming back home and being a Tiger again, but to have an opportunity to learn and work for Coach Mulkey. I mean, just think about it. My tenure as assistant women's coach at LSU, I've worked for 3 Naismith Hall of Famers, and Sue Gunner, Van Chancellor, and now Coach Mulkey. And by the way, when I was on the men's side, that guy was good enough they actually put his name on the court. So I mean, I don't know of an assistant coach that's been more blessed than I have been.
Yeah. And real quick, Dale Brown. You have a conversation with that guy. It might as well be 1988, right? He sounds exactly the same. He hasn't lost a thing.
No, he's as sharp and as engaging as ever. I still enjoy my conversations. To be honest with you, that was certainly part of the reason for me to come home, to be close to him, to be able, instead of picking up the phone and calling him, I can now drive over to his house and visit with him. But he hasn't changed. He's amazing. And
we're here to talk women mostly, but I had a conversation with Stanley Roberts the other day in the PMAC.
Sure.
There's only a few numbers who are retired, and 2 of them were on the same team, with the former Chris Jackson, now Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, and Shaquille O'Neal were on the same team. That was pretty amazing.
Well, it was. And, we had Vernell Singleton was on that team, and Wayne Sims was on that team, and Maurice Williamson was on that team. It was a very talented team, and we did some good things. It would have been nice to keep those guys together 2 or 3 years. Back in that era, that was the way you won, by keeping talent together for 2 or 3 years. Now with the portal, it's a little different situation. But those guys that we just named only had a chance to play together 1 year.
And those days will never come back, right? A Shaquille O'Neal playing 3 years.
Sure.
Christian Laettner, his long career at Duke. Those guys, they played for a long time.
Absolutely. That's in the rearview mirror a long way. Will never come back. The game is really changing on a whole bunch of levels, and but that was a special time. I mean, when you could have a standout player play 3 or 4 years. I mean, that was great for the community and the school, and of course, Coach is pretty happy about it too.
Well, that 89-90 team, when we always talk about LSU basketball, it always comes up. We talk about the talent on that team and whatnot, and. But Shaquille O'Neal was kind of young and clumsy, right? I mean, he hadn't grown into his body yet. He hadn't become the man of steel yet, and so forth.
Well, he had a tremendous work ethic, and he had an insatiable desire to improve. One of the things I did on that staff was I was responsible for film, and Shaquille was one of the main players who would come by and get extra film. And, everybody gets to see the fun-loving, have a good time Shaquille, but he was an absolute student of the game, and he would do anything you asked him to do if he thought it would get better. And when your best players have that mentality and that attitude, it carries over to the rest. People always ask me what it was like coaching Shaquille. It was the best. He was a hard worker. He had a team-first attitude, was an excellent student, was a 3.0 student, So our best player was also a great human being.
And Dale, back then, would get so upset about the officiating, people hammering him and not getting the call. And I think at a press conference later, when you were coaching the women there in 2007, we made a reference that Sylvia was kind of similar in that regard, that she got hammered a lot and didn't get calls.
It was. It was funny. I can remember coaching Sylvia, and I promise you the same thing was true with Shaquille. And we were actually playing in Lubbock against a really good Texas Tech, and they were just beating the crap out of Sylvia. And during a timeout, I walked over to an official, and I said, they're hammering their heck out of her. And the official's response was, Coach, she's a big girl. She can handle it. Well, that's not the way the rules were set up. But I do think there's sometimes human nature to let a smaller player be a little bit more physical with a big player. And, of course, in Shaquille's situation, it was dangerous. I mean, there were definitely strategies out there to push, shove, hack-a-shack. Mm-hmm. And I marveled at how he kept his composure for the longest time with some of those things that went on.
And he still continues to be involved in the community here in Baton Rouge, paying for the funeral of the poor young toddler, basically, who lost his life and so forth. And so that's great to see. You know, Chris Jackson, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, kids of the 80s like myself. He's like your favorite record, your favorite movie. You know, sometimes we have 5-10 minutes at the station. Go to YouTube, put on Chris Jackson versus Florida. You know, his first game as a freshman when he scored 53. What was it like to be around that guy every day?
Well, he was phenomenal. And one of my jobs when I first came on the staff is I actually stayed in Broussard Hall on the wing with the men's basketball players. And we had the video equipment set up there, so if kids want to come down and watch video, and we didn't have these great practice facilities. We had what we used to call the dungeon.
Yeah.
And there wasn't access for players back in those days. And you know, now they got fingerprint and swipe cards. Well, I had the key, so anytime a kid wanted to get to the practice gym, that was Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf every night. Every night he would come knock on my door. He'd say, "Coach, can we go to the practice gym?" I go down, unlock it, and I'd sit in the corner and watch him. And I've never seen anybody more intentional and deliberate in an individual workout. You know, some kids are going to come in, they're just going to jack up shots. I mean, he would put on a clinic in terms of how to improve doing an individual workout, and it was something to watch. It still is. I still share those stories with the players I coach today at the intentionality that he had every time he stepped on the court. You know, he had a reason for what he was doing. He just didn't go in to shoot. He went in to get better, and it was special to watch. And then, of course, it was amazing to watch him play. You know, there was a period there where, you know, a Sports Illustrated article had came out and had mentioned the fact that Chris had grown up with a single mother and didn't know who his father was. And we went on the road somewhere, it may have been Ole Miss, and the students would come early just to watch Chris shoot, not the warm-up, the pre-warm-up. And they started chanting, "Who's your daddy, who's your daddy?" And he went off for 50-something. And then we went on the road a little bit later. Same thing happened.
Not to interrupt you, that was the Gerald Glass game when he and Gerald
Could have been because Gerald put up 50 the same night.
Yeah.
But then we went on the road someplace else, and the same thing happened. Students came in and started chanting, "Who's your daddy, who's your daddy?" And Chris went off for like 48, and then we go to Alabama. And the students are there, and I'm actually standing beside Wimp Sanderson, the head coach at Alabama, and we're talking, and their students started chanting, and Wimp sprinted over to the student section and told them to shut up. And Wimp came back over and said, "Coach, that's first class, telling those kids not to do that." He said, "First class, heck." He said, "I don't want him going off for 50 on me."
There's a couple of reasons in there.
Yeah, Wimp was a smart coach.
I think it was 2012. I think the Final Four was in New Orleans. Anyway, there was some sort of like Reese's chocolate all-star game where Wimp was the coach of one team and Dale Brown was the other.
Wow.
And I think Dale said, "Wimp smiled today. First time he smiled since his wedding night," or something like that. You know, he was always.
You know what's funny is that they were great friends. You know, sometimes fans get to see coaches compete and don't understand the relationships they have off the court. Like when Wimp retired, one of the things he did was he came down to Baton Rouge and stayed with Dale for about 3 or 4 days. And the only reason I know that is because Coach allowed me to take Wimp over to TJ Ribs and pick his brain for an hour or two. So you can compete and still have those relationships. And you know, like one of the big things in Alabama is, you know, Sonny Smith, the great coach of Auburn's men's basketball, back when we went there, you know, that's Auburn, Alabama's a big rivalry. Well, when they retired, those guys hosted a radio show together. Yeah. So I just love those stories about how you can compete, and when the competition's over, you can have that friendship and that camaraderie.
Yeah, the plaid coats, right? That was
there
the
you
trademark.
Go. That's it. Yeah.
Of him, and even like people who coached at the same place. Now, it's beautiful to see that one of the biggest advocates for the court being named after Dale Brown was John Brady.
Yeah.
You know, and for a long period of time, John and Dale were oil and water. You know, they just couldn't mesh, and then they finally realized, hey, we've been a little immature about this on both sides, and now they've got this, you know, beautiful relationship.
Well, they do, and I just think that's again, that's two competitors that when they were able finally to get together and find out they both cared about kids, they both loved LSU, and I think it's great that they're friends now, and that's what comes about.
Yeah. As John would say, now, Jacques, you got to understand, Dale was still here, okay? He was still in town, right? He didn't leave. And every baseball coach who's been at LSU has kind of, in recent years has dealt with that too, with Skip and everything. You coming on this campus now, I mean, forget about how much things have changed since you left, over a decade ago? Yeah. Just in the last, 2 or 3 years? I think we're coming up on the 3-year anniversary of Scott Woodward being named the AD here. In the last year, we have Brian Kelly becoming the new head football coach. We have Jay Johnson becoming the new baseball coach. Kim here. Everything has turned over.
Well, and that's the nature of the business, isn't it? I was blessed at Texas A&M. Scott was the athletic director there for a couple of years while I was there. And, of course, Scott was working for Mark Emmert back when I first started out here. So I've known Scott for a long time, and Scott did just an amazing job at A&M. Made two splash hires there, hired Jimbo for football and hired Buzz Williams for men's basketball. And both of those have been monster hires and done great jobs. And so it doesn't surprise me that he went out and he hired a great football coach, or that he found a way to entice Kim Mulkey, and that's who he is, what he does. The thing I like about having Scott as an AD is he has a profound love for LSU, and he understands what's important here, and he's going to put people in positions in his administration that understand that as well. So, but the one thing that we have to get used to in this business now is change. It happens rapidly, whether it's personnel, whether it's rules, whether it's conference affiliation. I mean, it is all rapidly evolving now. NIL, portal, the game is just, it's warp speed.
Yeah, and I should have mentioned Matt McMahon. I knew I'd left one out.
Sure.
The new men's basketball coach as well. I was thinking today, Dale Brown would have been good with the transfer portal, right?
Absolutely.
I think he would have really excelled at that.
Yeah, and I'll tell you why. Because there's two schools of people with the portal. There are the people that are complaining about the portal, saying it's bad for basketball, kids aren't sticking to it, and then there's the people who say, hey, the portal's here. How can we best maximize it? And that was Dale. Dale was always one of those positive guys. Hey, this is what it is. He would have been pro portal because he was always pro student athlete. So I think the people that excel in the portal are the people that accept it and find ways to be positive with it. And I mean, that's right down Dale's alley.
And sometimes you can judge people without knowing the story. For example, Alexis Morris very well. If you look at her on paper and say, this girl's played at 4 schools in 4 years, she must be a problem, or she's wishy-washy, whatever. And then you sit down and you kind of learn her story and whatnot, and you kind of realize, okay, that's not the case at all, right?
Absolutely. I coached Alexis at Texas A&M. Texas A&M was where she was before she came to LSU. Absolutely love Lex. Matter of fact, I had a very emotional conversation with her in Auburn, Alabama after they beat us this year, because I'm just so proud of her growth, knowing the adversity and the hurdles she's had to overcome. And I think it's telling that she started that journey playing for Kim at Baylor, and when the opportunity came back, she wanted to play for Kim again. Kim gave her an opportunity. I think that speaks volumes to both Kim and Lexi, and I look forward to coaching her again.
You weren't coaching here obviously this year, but the dynamic of the team really changed when she got hurt, towards the end.
A high energy player, makes things happen on defense, rebounds well as a guard, can shoot the three, can penetrate. You take that dynamic off any team, especially late in the year. I always say injuries are more devastating in postseason than they are in preseason. Well, preseason, you got time to work around and figure out. Postseason, you don't have time. Boom. So that was really a tough break, and I think that made a difference in a long run for LSU this year.
Yeah, you go from scoring, 70, 80 points a game to 60.
Sure.
When she goes out, and they were able to grind out some victories, but it did make a difference down the stretch here. So, talking to some of the former players, like the Temekas of the world and Simones, and when things weren't really up and running here in the previous years, Temeka's comment has stuck with me when I said, it always kind of annoyed me how they let it erode. And she goes, well, if it annoyed you, just imagine how we felt, And so you being a guy who was part of the 5 Final Fours in a row here, did you watch from afar? And how is it now to see it now after last year, obviously back on the upswing?
Well, I always watch from afar. I was here 25 years. I love this place. This is a school where if I'm not playing them, I want to win in all sports. So I won't necessarily speak too much to, where it was, but it was absolutely special to watch what happened this year. And I'll tell you how special it was. I'm one of those guys who stays really in close contact with my former players, whether it's a text, a phone call, whether I'm taking a dinner, when I go through their town. That's one of the things that mean the most to me. And so I can't tell you how I got bombarded throughout the year at how Kim had genuinely opened the program back up to the alumni and made them feel wanted. And it wasn't just a Seimone or a Sylvia or a Temeka. She was like that with the kid that was the 13th player on the 2003 team. I mean, all the way through to the point where when we're playing LSU at Auburn, Kim, both teams are warming up. Kim, and this speaks to who Kim is. She came all the way down to the end of the bench. Matter of fact, the first thing she said to me, she goes, I don't know what the deal is, but Renee just loves your hind end. You know, Renee Bro, our secretary. And I said, listen, I said, I have to say this. I said, I love my former players at LSU, and I just want you to know how much they love you and how much it means to me that you've involved them back in this program in the process. And that, to me, and certainly, you know, seeing the crowds back at the PMAC and then some of the people in the Fast Break Club getting excited, all of that meant a lot to me because, you know, I was here to be a small part of starting to push the thing up the mountain.
Yeah, Kiana Chaney over at Southern Lab, the head coach, she won a state title this year and said how she got, you know, a nice letter in the mail from Coach Mulkey. And that's organizational work, right? I mean, to keep up with all these people and to, you know, take the time to do those things.
She takes phone calls from every former player, takes them. Doesn't just pass them off to somebody on the side. I don't care who it is, they call her. She's going to pick that phone up or she's going to give them a call back. And to me, I really believe if I'm playing for Coach Mulkey and I see how she treats former players, that means everything to me because there's far too much in college athletics we see when a player's done scoring touchdowns or making baskets or pitching shutouts. When they're done, the coaches don't have time for them. They're on to the next, and that's not the way Kim is. It never has been, and that's that's probably the number one thing that's attracted me back to come work for her.
Yeah. Well, the former players are everywhere, right? There's a popular, I guess, GIF you call it, where Kim's walking out of the tunnel at the PMAC and she bumps fists with somebody. That's Flo Williams, who has been working at the PMAC now for a while and doing a great job in management here of events, and she was part of those Final Four teams with Seimone and whatnot.
Well, I think what's special about those teams, it's amazing how many of those former players now live in Baton Rouge, which speaks to their experience at LSU, the support of the Baton Rouge community, that when they were done playing, they wanted to make that their new home. So we have a large alumni base here that has either from graduation lived here or went and took a job someplace and came back. I mean, there's probably close to 20 former players that live here that didn't originally live here when we signed them. So that speaks to how special this place is. And
no matter the sport, whether it's football, baseball, softball, whatever, the former players just want to feel like you know, they're loved, that their time there is respected and appreciated. You know, that's all they want.
The best way to build a program is to give players ownership, and it can't be part-time ownership. First of all, I think if you don't treat former players well, I think you're sending a message to your current players. I want to play, I want to work for somebody that's going to care about me, not just because I can make baskets. Mm-hmm. And that's what Kim sends when she opens up the doors to her former players the way she did. And what's more, these weren't her former players. These were former players from down through the years, and she treated them like they were her own. And to me, that just meant everything.
Well, I was about to say that's an important point on your part, to drop the petty. Well, she played for that coach, and I don't like that coach, or he played for that coach, and that's that fraternity of that era. I don't want to be part of that era. I mean, it's all part of the LSU umbrella, right, underneath it.
Absolutely, and she understands that. And to me, it just speaks to the core of who she is. I mean, I think coaches, how they treat people outside of their immediate staff, how they treat people in the community, how they treat former players, I think they give you a really inside glimpse at who they are as a person, what their character is.
I was talking to Grant before we got started here, the great sports information director here, and I told him, I said, on my Facebook page in the last 3 or 4 months, every top video is Kim Mulkey. Whether it's a 5-second video of her yelling at a ref or her talking about a Jim Croce song or whatever the case may be. I mean, I don't know if I've ever really seen somebody, I mean, obviously we've covered Joe Burrow, Tyrann Mathieu, people like that, but I mean, somebody who moves the meter, especially on the women's side of sports. I mean, you know the guy, you've run into the guy. I don't like that women's basketball. I mean, that guy is now entrenched. When do they play? I want to watch. I mean, that's how she moves the meter.
Well, you know, sometimes this word is used too much, but she is iconic. You know, and it goes back to she was a special high school player. She was one of the best college players ever, not just in her era. And then, you know, she's one of the great college coaches of all time. And it's not that she's a great coach, it's that she's passionate about her job and how she does it. And then add this layer to it, an unbelievable love for this state. I mean, it is absolutely the perfect hire. Absolutely she is the right person at the right place at the right time.
Was it kind of a minor miracle what she pulled out of that team last year?
Certainly it was, but I love the personnel that they had.
Yeah.
You know, the Pointer staying, Faustine staying, Cherry staying, and then she added some really key pieces. But she got them to play so hard and so smart. You know, with Kim, her teams always good defensively, always play hard, always rebound, always share the ball, always. Don't care if they're big, slow, quick, small. Those are the way her teams play. And the miraculous part was she got this team to do that quick. Usually it takes a year or two when you come in and take over a program to get them to gel and understand what your philosophy. Now part of it, you just alluded to this, her personality is contagious. When your coach is intense, you know, it's easier for players to be intense. So it was an incredible year she had.
And you know, no one, I guess, hates on losers, right? No one says, I can't stand that program or that coach or whatever when they're going 8-20 or whatever. But just covering her this year, just, you know, maybe some of the things I heard from people who were insecure or didn't like her or whatever just did not pan out in terms of her, like, oh, she's high maintenance. Oh, she's going to wear you out. Oh, she was fantastic.
Yeah. as all the great ones are. You find any great coach, and there's always going to be some naysayers or people that want to throw things out there, but that just comes with greatness. I promise you, in my short time knowing her and in my times competing with her, doesn't bother her a bit. She is very focused and tunnel vision on where she wants to go and what she wants to do, and she doesn't much care about the people that may not like the way she does it. She's got a job to do, she's going to do it.
Well, and I've talked to former players and whatnot. The same things that some of the fans said that they did not like about her, say in 2004, they say they love about her now. You know, I can't stand it when she yells at the refs. Oh, I love it when she yells at the refs. Oh, she thinks she's so cute, those flashy outfits. Oh, I love those flashy outfits. You know, that's the deal with any coach, right? When they're iconic and they're your coach, then that all.
Yeah, she's one of us now.
She's one of us.
Absolutely.
Right. You coached against Bobby Knight, right?
I did.
Oh, yeah, you did. Yeah.
We lost a really tough game in the NCAA regionals in Boise, Idaho. Calvert Chaney went off on us. I can remember very clearly. Thanks for bringing that memory up.
It wasn't the bang in the telephone game.
That was before I got
here.
That
was before. But yeah, I do remember that game. Yeah, I'm going to turn the knife. I think you guys had a 10-point lead or something.
We did. We started off well and we're humming, and then they just cut into it. That was, matter of fact, Shaquille O'Neal, 12 for 12 from the free throw line that game.
Did he have a triple-double? Did he have like 12 blocks?
I'm not sure. The free throw obviously was something that he had a great game, but Indiana was just a little bit better that day.
And I think I may be just pulling this out of the air, but I think the name of the arena is the Taco Bell Arena.
That I do not recall.
When I went up there, John Brady, one of John Brady's teams, NCAA tournament, went to Boise, Idaho, and it was a rough night against UAB. And it was the Taco Bell Arena then, which Shaq, I think, went on to. Didn't he do commercials joking about his free throw shooting and everything?
He's done more commercials than we can keep track of. He is the pitch man of pitch men.
We could do a 1 hour on his NIL potential when he was at LSU.
How about Seimone Augustus? You know, I had dinner with Seimone up in Minneapolis, and we talked about that. I said, do you realize what your NIL deals would have been at LSU? For a women's basketball player in this state at that time, the way she was loved.
Yeah.
hard to imagine.
Well, and I talked to her about, she was the first pick in the WNBA draft that year. Tyrus Thomas was the fourth pick. Tyrus gets $5 million, she gets $50,000,
Sure.
right? I mean, those are the kind of battles that they've been fighting over the years and whatnot. But certainly, do you remember when she showed up on her signing day, not wearing total orange, but just a tad bit of orange?
I tease her about it at least twice a year. At least twice a year. I'll tell you, we were in Coach Gunner's office, and because it was on live TV, local TV.
Yeah.
And we were sitting in the office, and we did not know who she was signing with. We were watching right there with the state, and she walked out with a sprinkling of orange on. And I remember, I can't repeat what Coach Gunner said, but she got up and walked out of the office, and then Seimone signed. We had to go run. Hey, we got her. I mean, it was a great day. I remember we went out and bought a box of cigars and took them up to Coach Burtman, who had been real helpful in the recruiting of her. And I mean, that was an amazing day in the history of LSU women's basketball. I'm not sure we knew how that would change everything the day she signed with us.
I think Sue told us something like, I about had a heart attack or something like that. But I think Skip even said, perhaps most important signee in the history of LSU athletics in terms of what she meant across the board.
Well, you know, we beat out Connecticut, we beat out Tennessee. She was local. She'd already been on Sports Illustrated. I will argue, obviously I'm biased, that I think she's the most influential athlete that's ever been at LSU because she changed the relevance of an entire sport. You know, Joe Burrow, I mean, wow. But football and men's basketball were already great and had she elevated an entire program. Her senior year, we led the nation in road attendance. People wanted to see Seimone play. And she did nothing but make this city proud after she left. You know, All-Pro, Olympic gold medals, championships. She's been active in the social community. This is the kind of person Seimone is. She retires, decides to go into coaching, gives me a call. Can I come hang out with you for 4 days? I need to talk about what this coaching thing's like. So, I mean, that mindset, you know, preparation, you know, Seimone is one of my favorites, not because she's a great player, but because the way she's went about things, the way she's handled her fame. She's still incredibly humble and modest, and another player, another person who deeply loves and cares about the state of Louisiana.
Well, and Coach Mulkey kind of speaking things into existence. I mean, earlier this year at a press conference mentions Seimone and Sylvia need to have statues. This should have been done already. And here we are just a couple months later or whatever, and she's going to get one.
Yeah.
At least Seimone at this point.
Incredibly deserving. I mean, she's one of ours, not at Baton Rouge. This is a Baton Rouge kid who has committed herself to this university and this community, and like I said, represented it so well. And shoot, one of the advantages of being on the staff, I guess I'll be here when we get to unveil that statue. That'll be an amazing day.
And visiting with her recently, she did say it was close the night before she signed. She's going back and forth with Tennessee, and man, that's just not something you want to think about, huh?
Not only that, but here's the other thing. She didn't sign early. She pushed it back to the spring. It was during the April period. So she made, I tease her all the time, you made us sweat another 4 or 5 months. So, but it's on the rearview mirror, and God, how lucky were we to have her.
All these years later, it has to be the most highly anticipated, most covered female signing day or event that I've ever seen.
No, without question. The most I've been involved with, and I've been a lot of places, and been lucky to sign some really special kids.
Yeah. And like you said, I was visiting with Patrick Wright, the voice of the Lady Tigers, for I guess 30 years now, recently, and he was talking about when you guys finally sold out the building against Tennessee in the height of Pat Summitt and Candace Parker, I guess, and those players. And back in the early 90s when I used to have to drop a curtain, right,
Sure.
to cover up the stands. Hey, everyone go sit on the same side because there's nobody here. Let's try to make it look like there's some people here. And that day, I think Sue told Pat, well, I guess we don't need that curtain anymore, you know.
I'll tell you something about that. They actually put signs up on the glass doors of the Pete Maravich Assembly Center 2 days before game sold out. And we walked over one time and Coach Gunner just stared at it for what seemed like an hour, but probably just a minute, and didn't say anything. And then the night we actually walked out onto the floor, she cried. tears running down her eyes when I'm going to get emotional right now, when she walked out of that tunnel, and there was no free tickets, there was no promotions. It was LSU basketball was a quality product and was a national product, and it's hard to understand when she started out driving a van, didn't have an assistant coach, when there was no marketing dollars, when nobody cared the curtain. I mean, that whole journey, I know fans will talk about, but I don't think anybody, it will mean anything to people like Coach Kim Mulkey will understand. She's been a part of history at Ruston, and then she created the same thing at Baylor. But for those people that were on the ground floor when nobody cared, including administration and communities, that was a monumental day.
It's what you guys had to do, but Kim Mulkey referenced she didn't like the airplane and the winter-free car and all that stuff. Try to get somebody to go to a game who's not interested in women's basketball. We want to eliminate all that stuff. We want you to come because you want to watch the team.
Well, I always said this, I'm the guy who came up with the idea for Pack the PMAC. And I had somebody ask me, what's the goal? I said, the goal is not to have a Pack the PMAC. That was the goal. Let's see if we can get some people in here, they fall in love with the sport and keep coming, then we won't have to do it. And slowly but surely, that's what we did.
Absolutely. Good stuff. When you look back, and I'm just bouncing around here, when you look back on the 5 Final Fours, the most glorious time in the history of the program, and then on the other hand, you didn't win a game at the Final Four. Right. How do you reflect back on that period? How much disappointment is mixed in with the pride of what you did?
Well, I don't really think about not winning a game till somebody brings it up.
Like me.
Yeah.
Jerk right here.
No, certainly it's a trivia question. We're right up there, I guess, with the Buffalo Bills and some others. But each year was special and unique for us to get there. And I always remember players and teams, I think, more than I do games and seasons. I will tell you this, and I have not shared this story with Kim yet, but when they had her introductory event in the Pete Maravich Assembly Center in front of the fans and former players and everything, I was sitting in my office in Auburn and watching it on a live stream. And she talked about the history of LSU basketball and what they accomplished, and she pointed up at the banners, and she said, those 5 banners, 5 straight Final Fours. She goes, but you know what I notice? There's one banner that's not up there. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it right now. And part of the lure of me coming back is to try and help her raise that banner almost as a completion of what we started, 10, 15 years ago. But each of those teams were really special. They had different components. I could go through each team and tell you what made each one different and special. For their sake and for our fans' sake, I wish we could have won a game and certainly won a championship. And I thought there were some that we should have won. I thought, and I always believe this. I always believe we fell short a little bit in coaching on a couple of games that would have made a difference. But Tennessee's never been to 5 straight Final Fours. As a matter of fact, I think there's only 2 other schools, Connecticut, who's been to like 1,000 in a row, and then Stanford has now had, a nice streak. So we're one of 3 in the history of women's basketball that have been to 5 or more straight Final Fours.
Yeah, at that press conference, she goes, I want you to look up there, and she counted them, Final Four, Final Four. And he goes, one thing missing, a national champion. And she banged her fist down on the podium. That's what I'm here to do. And the place went crazy. Matter of fact, Grant just told me we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of that press conference. It's April 25th, right? Coming up. So a lot has changed in a year. You brought up UConn, and it's always been my favorite story about Bob Starkey. You take over the team in 07, and you're in Fresno, California, a million miles away, feels like, about 2,500 miles away, and you're going up against Gino Auriemma in UConn, and you're kind of doing a poor man's, poor me type deal. I gotta go up against Gino. I'm not a head coach. He's better looking than me. He's better coached than me. All this stuff, and we all laugh. And then so Gino gets up there, and we repeat everything you just said. Coach Starkey says, "Oh, you're Gino Auriemma. You're better looking. You're better dressed." He goes, "That's true. That's all true." He goes, "But he's got Sylvia Fowles."
Thank goodness. Thank goodness.
In true Gino form, as the icon he is, he knew.
I'll give you a backstory about that because I'm a big Gino guy. before we played, I bumped into him in a hallway. We were probably going back and forth from practice or press conference. He just said, how you doing? A lot of stuff going on. You gonna get to stay at LSU? What's going on? I said, Coach, I don't know. I really want to concentrate on the team and see what we can do. He said, well, listen. He says, when the season's over, you need anything, you give me a call. Anything I can do to help you, you can count on me. I said, I appreciate, Coach. So we go out. We play pretty good and beat them, I think, by about 20.
23? 73 to 50?
I don't know. We played really good, really good. And Seal was great, but I remember Allison Hightower was special. Q was great. Erica White. Ashley Thomas was outstanding that game. But anyway, I'm in the hallway by myself, and I'm leaning against the wall, and I'm looking at the stat sheet. And Gino comes walking down the hall, and I'm like, what do I say here? So he just kind of stops, and he stares at me for a while. He goes, I don't like you very much right now. And I said, yes, sir. He said, but I meant what I told you yesterday. If there's anything I can do for you, let me know. That's a Gino Orium that sometimes people don't know, because sometimes he's bigger than life. Kind of like you talk about Kim, there's people that love Gino and there's people that hate Gino. But I'll never forget that. After we had found a way to win that ball game, he said, anything I can do for you, let me know.
I've said it, of all the games I've been to, I think that was the best game I've ever seen LSU women's basketball play, considering the opponent, the circumstances, everything. I think that's the best I've ever seen. We
were really good on both ends. I can remember we changed defenses that game. We were playing a matchup on a make and a man on a miss, and it really confused them. Our kids were really executing it at a high level. And then offensively, we were clicking. I thought our motion was really good. We were cutting and screening. Of course, we knocked down shots. You always look smart when you knock down shots. But I do remember specifically Allison Hightower as a freshman playing like a senior that game. And like I said, Erica White was great. Seal was great. Q was great. I'm probably leaving some out, but I just remember Allie really stepped up as a freshman.
When it comes to like music, for example, there's always a guy, maybe he wants to play drums and be in the back, or play bass or guitar or whatever. There's certain people that just want to be the front man or front woman. Sure. You have never wanted to be the front man. They maybe even begged you after 07, hey, don't you want to apply for this? Don't you want this head coaching job? That was never you. Why is that the case?
I think I just have a really good understanding of what I'm good at. I enjoy the teaching, the one-on-one with the players, watching film, doing scouts, and boy, the role of a head coach now. We talked earlier about the way things have changed. You're a CEO now. There's so many things on Kim Mulkey's plate every day that don't have anything to do with coaching, but are so incredibly important to our program that I just don't think I'd be good at. I say this all the time. There's in one of the Dirty Harry movies, Clint Eastwood said, a man's got to know his limitations. And I think I've been pretty good at knowing what I can do and what I can't do.
Well, and Kim even told me, like Skip Bertman, as he got later into his career, he didn't go out there and run every practice every day. The good ones delegate, and if they don't, they're going to burn themselves out. And she even told me, she said, there's going to be maybe a day where I'm going to tell Bob, hey, you go run practice today, you go teach this, I'm going to go work on this instead. And that's, that's the beauty of this relationship, that she can trust a veteran like you who's been in it, as long as she has, really.
Well, and I think that's why we're going to make a good team. And by the way, the staff, what a staff. I think it's very telling that she has so many people that stay with her for a long period of time. I know she did her homework on me. I did her homework on her. I already knew she was a great coach. That product is on the floor and undeniable. But when I see the people that stay with her for long periods of time at Baylor and then roll into Baton Rouge with her, that tells me right there she's great to work for. So all those, there's not one negative for me coming here outside. I absolutely love my time on the plains, and I worked for a great lady there in Johnny Harris. But other than that, and I said this, Gino could have called me and I would still be at Auburn. This is the only place I would have left for.
Wow. And sorry to turn the knife on you, Bob, but the game that you coached against her in the Final Four, when you had Seimone, Sylvia, Temeka.
Sure.
That's kind of the one game we look back on and we're like, man, that team should have won, maybe. Right. Is that? I know you mentioned we should have coached them better a couple of times. Is that one that you look back on and say, man, we could have done better? Or
Absolutely. I don't want to take anything away from Baylor because that was a really good Baylor team, but that game we got out to a really big lead early.
Yeah.
Really big lead early. And then they clawed right back into it at halftime. I think we were up at half a couple of points, and I thought their halftime adjustments were better than ours. Credit to them, and certainly I thought we could have been a little bit better. But you're a coach, so there's with a couple exceptions, I thought we could have won 3 or 4 Final Four games. But again, we're coaching against really great coaches too.
Yeah.
But that was a game where you look back. I want to say Baylor advanced and played Michigan State and won by 20. And we're sitting there thinking, our game with Baylor was the championship. Those were the 2 best teams in it. And if we could have found a way, we might have been able to hang that ultimate banner. But we didn't. Baylor got it done that day.
You coach with Van Chancellor too.
Absolutely.
A Hall of Famer. Keanu Chaney, best 3-point shooter in the nation. Love covering Van. That team too. Did you won the SEC? Did you go 14-0 with that group in the league?
We did. Went 14-0.
Did that twice.
Did it twice. Won the SEC 3 out of 4 years.
Yeah.
Which had never happened here before.
Yeah. And you're a defensive coach, right?
Yes,
and that team that year just really kind of leaned on that defense, kind of grind out games and whatnot.
We did. We had Erica White at the point, who was excellent on-ball defender, one of the best defenders I've ever coached, Tay LeBlanc. We had Ashley Thomas, one of the smarter defensive players, and then you had Syl to clean up any mistakes inside. It's always nice to have that big kid. Somebody breaks down and gives up a cut or a drive. So, but they were really, the thing that used to bother me sometimes about those teams is people would call us a great athletic team. And I thought there was always a little hint of something else there. That was an incredibly smart group of players we had during those 5 years. And intelligence is as important defensively as offensively. People think basketball IQ is about reading things and making the right, but defensively be able to see, talk, communicate, and work together on the defensive end. And those kids are really special defensively.
Fantastic interview here with the great Bob Starkey. I won't bring up Alexis Hornbuckle, but Keanu Chaney has talked about that. She brings that up with her team about the little things make a big deal. Block out a girl or whatever, who had scored the whole game, and she gets that put back. I was sitting right there in Tampa, Florida when that occurred. But those are the kind of things that happen. The athletes that put themselves out there on the floor, especially these days, really submit themselves to people who really don't have any athletic ability, ridiculing them on social media, Twitter, Facebook, and whatnot. That's a new challenge as a coach, right?
It is, and I've always said this for as long as I've coached, and the nature of media covering sports adds to it. I have never played a game where I thought the last play won or lost the game. Mm-hmm. Like, for instance, in the course of a basketball game, there's anywhere from 175 to 250 possessions, offensively and defensively. You think one play, just because it was at the end of a game, made the difference. But sometimes that one play could be at the end of a first quarter, or somewhere in the third quarter, where you had a chance to extend the lead, but you left the door open. Or you have a couple really bad possessions and it leads to a foul that puts somebody on the bench. There's a lot of plays, I think, during the course of a game, and it's not always that last play, but of course that's the best sound bite, or that's the highlight. Or gosh, with NBA, I hear people all the time say, well, I don't turn on an NBA game until the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. So there's so much that we ask players to do over the course of 2 hours. And with basketball, at the pace of that game, with somebody that's defending you or trying to beat you off the bounce, and we're expecting every possession to be perfect. I marvel at good players and good teams because of that. Fantastic conversation with the great Bob Starkey. We'll wrap it up here with a few latest and greatest current things. LaDasia Williams from Missouri, a 6'4" post player, averaged 12.4 points per game, 4.2 rebounds, 1.2 blocks. You just took her in. She'll be part of the team next year to help you kind of replenish the Faustina Fulas and the big people that have left. Very smart player. Very smart player. Played for Missouri. A grinder inside. Likes contact. Finishes well. Rebounds well. Excited to be coaching her. I want to say she had 25 against us at Auburn, so it'll be nice to know that I don't have to guard her this year.
Good stuff. Jasmine Carson, who got tweets from Samuel L. Jackson, right? He's her uncle or something?
Something like that, yeah.
He was fired up.
How crazy is that?
Yeah, well, that's the kind of publicity you can't buy, right?
Absolutely.
She's a 5'10" guard, a grad transfer from West Virginia. That's on her way over.
Yeah, I think the big thing with her is her ability to shoot the three. And I know from talking to Kim that we're looking for some people that, one of the things that have really changed about the game is the use of the three. I don't care if men's, women's, NBA, it's a major, major part of the game. You've got to be able to have players that stretch the floor, and that's what she does best.
Flau'jae Johnson, who Satia Messer, who you're replacing, we talked about her, and she said she's a great young lady. She's a rapper, but everything is clean and a positive message, and made it to the finals of America's Got Talent, right, or semifinals,
yeah.
Whatever the case may be. And she's another long-range shooter that you're bringing in.
She's more than that. I mean, she's going to be a crowd favorite. She can shoot the three. She can drive it. She can finish in traffic. She's got a great personality. The irony of that is one of the very first Zoom calls we made recruiting at Auburn was with her. And we had a little bit of a connection there. Matter of fact, as soon as it was announced, she reached out and was technically the second player. Lex was the second one congratulate me on coming. But she's one of those kids who has a chance to play at the next level. She can do everything. Passes the ball well. Will be a nightmare for teams to guard.
Anybody else we should mention? Newcomers coming in, or I know there's some things you can't talk about right now and whatnot, paperwork. And
I think what I'd say is we're not done, and that's probably the slogan for everybody with the portal. I think there'll be some exciting news to come up soon. Kim's always going to be working it. Like I said, she's one of those people who, hey, the portal's there. How can we best use it to service?
I've talked to people. I think Nick Saban one time said that. People make a big deal about my motivational tactics and my this and my that. It ain't that hard. I get the best players.
Yeah.
And that's
the one thing that hasn't changed. The better the players, the smarter the coach. Now, there's still, one of my favorite movies is the movie Miracle, which is about the 1980 USA Olympic hockey team. And Herb Brooks, the head coach, is up in the tower with the assistant coach, and he's written down the names of the people he wants to bring to camp to make the Olympic team, and he hands it to the assistant coach. The assistant coach says, wait a minute, you left off so-and-so, you left off so-and-so, you took off so-and-so, these aren't the best players. He said, I'm not looking for the best players, I'm looking for the right players. So that's the art of recruiting. Everybody can go to the gym in the summer and say, best player, best player, best player. But what player's going to fit? What player's going to be able to play the way Kim wants her to play, offensively, defensively, be the type of teammate we want? So good players are important, but right players are equally important.
Team chemistry.
Yes.
We've talked about Sue back here. What would she think about women's basketball these days and how far it's come from her fight in the 70s and 80s?
I think she would be incredibly happy. I can't say that enough. From crowds, TV exposure, the pro game growing, and at the same token, she wouldn't be satisfied. She'd be happy, she'd be pleased, but she was always progressive in things that needed to be changed about the sport so it could grow. So she would be very pleased, very happy, but she wouldn't be satisfied. She would still be wanting to see more growth. But she would have been incredibly happy with what she saw in the PMAC this year too.
Bob Starkey, I really enjoyed this.
My pleasure.
Thanks for doing it. Thanks for giving us the time, and just thrilled you're back, man.
Glad to be back.
Bob Starkey returns with the LSU women's basketball program. Kim Mulkey, year 2, should be exciting. Thanks for stopping by.